This incident has happened for several days now, and there is a preliminary investigation report. Today, let's thoroughly explore the reasons behind this incident and its significance for public safety. We will understand what we can learn from this incident in China. It occurred on the evening of December 14, 2023, around 7 p.m., between Beijing Subway Changping Line, West 2nd Ring Station, and Life Science Park Station. Two trains with the numbers CP024 and CP032 were involved in the rear-end collision. Witnesses at the scene said that when the accident happened, all the lighting went out, and there was a loud explosion sound. The train cars broke apart, and multiple passengers were thrown outside the cars. Due to the power outage, all lighting equipment was not working, leading to considerable chaos among the passengers inside the cars. It was around 10:30 p.m. when the evacuation at the scene was roughly completed, and the injured were taken to the nearby Jishuitan Hospital for treatment. According to official announcements later, a total of 505 people were sent to the hospital, with 102 fractures, fortunately, no fatalities. At 11 p.m. on the 14th, the official Weibo account of Beijing Subway also issued an apology statement. So, what caused this rear-end collision? On December 15th at noon, the Beijing Municipal Commission of Transportation provided a preliminary investigation update. The explanation itself was short, but rather unclear. Due to snowy conditions, the front train's signal was downgraded. After emergency braking to stop, the rear train, unable to brake effectively in the downhill section, rear-ended the front train. The incident was attributed to slippery tracks caused by snowy weather, leading to a signal downgrade for the front train. When the front train made an emergency stop, the rear train, unable to brake effectively on the downhill track, collided with the front train. Just this sentence, and there are several doubts. Firstly, the term slippery tracks, and secondly, how did the signal of the front train degrade? The signal degradation alone can lead to a lengthy discussion. We'll mention the third point, that the front train made an emergency stop. The fourth point is that the rear train couldn't brake in time and collided. These points can raise many questions. Firstly, about slippery tracks. It refers to the difficulty of operation when vehicles are moving on the tracks in snowy and icy weather. But why would slippery tracks lead to signal degradation? What's the relationship between these two? There are currently two interpretations circulating online. The first interpretation is that the so-called signal degradation actually refers to signal faults, meaning that the communication link signal is not good. The term communication link is a common term in transportation management, similar to a path through which communication travels. In the event of an issue with the train, signals are sent through multiple links. If several of these links fail, the information about the braking of the front train may not be transmitted in a timely manner. Consequently, the control center doesn't receive the message promptly, and it can't timely alert the following trains about the situation, leading to a rear-end collision. The question is, what caused the problem in the signal transmission system? This is a very professional and complex issue, and a thorough investigation is needed to draw conclusions. This is the first explanation. It suggests that signal degradation is, in fact, a communication system failure. The second explanation is that signal degradation is not a communication system failure, but a safety operation oriented toward faults. It's like driving on icy roads in snowy conditions. Tires can easily skid. Therefore, you need to maintain a safe following distance, reduce speed, and brake gently rather than slamming on the brakes. As a layman, based on common sense and literal understanding, fault-oriented operation and signal degradation and fault-oriented operation seem unrelated. If I'm driving on icy roads and my tires keep slipping, I'll definitely turn on the hazard lights to alert the following cars to keep a safe distance. In my case, there's a potential issue even though a fault hasn't occurred yet, as the risk of a fault occurring in the front is high. So turning on the hazard lights is considered a fault-oriented operation, right? but my car lights are working correctly. When you look at it from the rear, my signal has been transmitted very clearly, and there's no signal degradation, right? So, from a literal understanding, I tend to favor the first interpretation that signal degradation actually means a communication system failure. Speaking of this, we need to insert a sentence. Some individual viewers might find this a bit confusing. The subway runs underground, right? It's called the underground subway. So, why would icy roads affect it? Because in all city subway networks, some sections actually run above ground. This incident occurred on the Changping section, which is above ground. Chinese residents in the U.S. should have experienced taking the subway in winter in the eastern U.S., where snowy weather is very common. Subway collisions in cities due to snow and ice are quite rare. Beijing subway is relatively new, so a subway collision in Beijing is even more unusual. The communication control system used in Beijing's subway network is called CBTC. The Changping section started using CBTC as a demonstration project in 2010, just over 10 years ago. News reports at the time said that China had mastered the core communication technology of CBTC and was the fourth country to apply it. This was a significant symbol of China's technological rise. I want to remind everyone of the high-speed train collision in Zhejiang, which happened the second year after China claimed a major breakthrough in transportation communication control technology in 2011. The investigation report that year stated that the signal system failed due to lightning strikes. Now, for this year's incident in Beijing's subway Changping section, the signal system provider is Beijing Jiaotong Control Technology. Interestingly, this company was established in 2009. In 2010, the Changping section of the subway was the first to use the independently developed CBTC communication control system as a demonstration project. However, this company is quite young. From its founding date, it appears to have been established to undertake this business. This kind of company, a new player in the field, was established specifically for this purpose, and it's unlikely that it developed core technology in such a short time. So where did this technology come from? And to what extent does it have independent intellectual property rights? This raises a big question mark. This year's subway accident in Beijing has once again raised concerns about the reliability of China's traffic signal system. According to a mainland media outlet, Caixin, which interviewed a professional in the field of Chinese transportation, this type of signal system should automatically adjust the time intervals between trains to 90 to 180 seconds based on weather and road conditions. If the front train encounters an emergency and brakes suddenly, the following train should receive timely information and have enough distance and time to brake. However, in this collision, the time and distance left by the stopped front train for the following train were insufficient. In theory, this automated control system should easily resolve such a problem, so it's perplexing why this situation occurred. Chinese experts have indirectly questioned the reliability of this signal system. Further information surfaced, with claims that the following train, CP032, was traveling at a speed of 93 km/h at the time of the accident, and the driver was in manual mode. This raises more suspicions. Was the signal system already malfunctioning before the rear-end collision occurred? A subway industry insider named Zhang Ailun revealed that there were actually 3 trains involved, not the 2 reported in the news. The first train experienced a signal system failure due to a power outage on the 3 tracks and stopped at the Life Science Institute station. The second train, unable to move forward and required to maintain distance from the front train, got stuck between the 2 stations. The third train departed from the West Second Ring station in manual driving mode but overspeeded. When it realized the presence of the second train between the stations, there wasn't enough distance. When trying to brake, the train couldn't control the significant inertia of sliding on the tracks, resulting in a collision with the middle train. So, according to this explanation, the actual rear-end collision involved the second and third trains, not the first and second trains as initially reported in the news. This revelation casts strong doubt on both the communication signal control system and the braking system's operational status. At present, this is a preliminary summary and initial presentation of the known situation. What areas should we focus on that are more related to public safety? Next, I would like to go beyond the event itself, because it has already happened for several days. From a broader perspective, China, as a complex society that has introduced a large amount of advanced technology, is now facing the threat of public safety fragility. Fragility means it breaks with a crisp sound under pressure. Major public safety events in Chinese society are also occurring in this fragile manner. In modern urban life, we all rely heavily on the normal operation of complex technological systems. If a link in this complex system fails, even if one or two components do not function properly, this fragility occurs, leading to unforeseen disasters. The recent subway rear-end accident in Beijing is a recent example. You can also recall the Tianjin-Binhai New Area explosion in 2015, which was such a fragile event. Before that, you had no idea of any risk, and suddenly there was a loud explosion, stunning everyone. The flooding of the Jingguang Tunnel during the rainstorm in Zhengzhou in 2021 is another example of this fragility. Before, no one thought there was any safety issue with that tunnel, but when it rained, people found out there was a problem. Too late. The plane crash of Eastern Airlines. Flight 5732 in March 2022 is another example of this fragile disaster, and it is quite unsettling. Indeed, these vicious public safety events are just the tip of the iceberg of these fragile events. The intervals between them are getting shorter and shorter. From the train rear-end accident in Zhejiang in 2011 to the Tianjin port explosion in 2015, there was a gap of 4 years. However, from the flooding of the Jingguang Tunnel in 2021 to the Eastern Airlines 321 crash in 2022, and then to the sudden unannounced flood release in Zhuozhou in the summer of 2023, and the subway rear-end in Beijing at the end of 2023, you can see the rhythm is getting tighter and the frequency is increasing. Due to the complexity of modern technological systems, failure can occur at any link. As an outsider to this system, you cannot predict it. The current background is that information is opaque, there is cover-up, making it difficult to clarify responsibility and hold people accountable. If accountability is not thorough, the problem will happen again and again. For example, in the 2015 Tianjin-Binhai New Area explosion, the direct cause was that people did not know there was a warehouse area with a large amount of dangerous explosives. The port authorities, regulatory authorities, and the media, which should have played the role of public safety watchdogs, were all silent and did not disclose anything. The developers building residential areas around this warehouse either did not know or did not disclose. In the end, the common people who bought houses were living next to a big bomb. The inspection of the safety procedures for this warehouse area was not conducted properly, and it exploded, creating a mushroom cloud that shocked everyone. Also, the flooding incident in the Jingguang Tunnel in Zhengzhou in 2021 had emergency contact phones every tens of meters, making it seem like the safety facilities were very comprehensive. But who knows if it was because no one answered the phone at the emergency center at that time, or if someone answered the phone but the evacuation alarm was late. In any case, the tunnel was flooded, and people could not escape. The exact number of people trapped in the tunnel is still a mystery. Since we don't know the number of people who paid the cost of life for this incident, the severity of this event is also unknown. Can accountability be thorough in this case? You cannot be hopeful. Also, the focus of the 2022 Eastern Airlines 321 crash is on Deputy Captain Zhang Zhengping. He was originally a person with rich professional qualities, someone who should have been responsible for passenger safety. How did he suddenly lose hope and lose his sanity? The internal situation is still unknown. Such a serious public disaster, where one person loses sanity, and causes the death of hundreds of people. The plane crash happened a year ago, but what really happened to the deputy captain? The question everyone is still asking remains unanswered. In fact, on December 9th of this year, China Eastern Airlines had another alarming incident. Well, a serious malfunction of the aircraft, so it had to return urgently to Pudong Airport. So, has China Eastern Airlines learned enough from the incident a year ago? Has the safety loophole been fixed? This raises another big question mark. The current danger lies in the fact that society is permeated with lies from beginning to end. Every so-called progress is filled with exaggeration and falsehoods. At every step, you need to cover up, and covering up the results, you really run into slippery roads in snowy weather. So what is the result? Of course, it's one headfirst fall after another. In this context, snowy weather refers to the cutoff of technology supply from Europe, the United States, and Japan, coupled with an economic winter making the roads slippery. This is the updating and maintenance of the complex urban technological system, falling behind. The economic winter means a lack of funds, and as a result, everywhere there are holes that were originally covered, all exposed. In the case of the subway rear-end incident, the signaling system is a complex technical system with a strong professional nature. Does China really have core technology? Originally, it is a question that should be explored in depth because it is related to everyone's safety. However, it is unquestionable and undiscussable, even extending to the entire Chinese rail transit system and the rise of high-speed rail, which is regarded as a sign of China's technological rise. How much exaggeration and falsehood are there in this high-speed rail technology? After the technical supply cut off from Europe, the United States, and Japan, if China's own products cannot replace them, one or two links in this complex technical system may cost you your life. Here is another so-called weather problem, which is the economic winter. In fact, the economic winter does not necessarily lead to public disasters. Many discussions on the internet talk about the Little Ice Age from the 16th to the 18th century. In the first half of this Little Ice Age, in the UK, they experienced the Elizabethan Golden Age, while in China there were major upheavals in the Central Plains' 5 provinces, eventually overturning the Ming dynasty. So how to deal with economic winter and disasters is crucial for industrial society. Economic recessions have occurred many times, in various eras, and in many countries. It is not that once there is an economic downturn, planes will crash and trains will derail, right? The key is how the government and society deal with the current recession. These 2 days, many people have exposed the chaos in the recruitment and security inspection of Beijing subway on the internet. I don't have the specific details here, but in general, netizens feel that Beijing subway is spending too much money on security checks. From the information I have found, the estimate of security check expenditure in Beijing accounts for 30% to 50% of its total operating expenses. With so much spending on security checks, it certainly squeezes the maintenance costs of the vehicles themselves. The financial subsidies received by the Beijing subway from the government reached over 26 billion yuan in 2022. An increase of 22.43% from 2021. The growth rate is indeed high, but what was the situation in 2021 and 2022? It was overall epidemic prevention and control, and the number of subway passengers greatly reduced. Therefore, in those 2 years, the Beijing subway owed a lot, and the losses were severe. The scale of subsidy growth is still not enough. We can confidently predict that not only the Beijing subway but also the subway systems in other major cities in China will receive less and less financial subsidies. In addition to raising fares for passengers, increasing the cost of commuting to work, there is no second way in the future. In 2022, the average per capita operating cost of the Beijing subway was said to reach 14 yuan, while the average per capita fare paid was only 4.5 yuan, which can only cover 1/3 of its costs. The gap in between can only be filled by financial subsidies. It is not rare for subways to lose money. Public transportation systems in major cities around the world lose money and rely on financial subsidies. Public transportation is, after all, a basic service provided by the government. You collect taxes from the people, take it from the people, and use it for the people. There is nothing to say. The problem in China is that this iron-fisted mindset runs through every aspect. Just like during the Clear Zero period, money was rather spent on things like checking nucleic acids, risk control, and building makeshift hospitals, rather than spending on things that are really useful to the people, such as expanding the medical system, increasing the resilience of the medical system, preparing for long-term coexistence with viruses, and not spending money on things like helping ordinary people and small businesses, reducing the secondary disasters caused by risk control. In the case of the subway, the iron-fisted mindset is reflected in financial subsidies in many ways. It is used in the security checklinks, not in the safety maintenance of the vehicles themselves. Is security inspection really about checking for terrorists and protecting public safety? Maybe, but where does most of the security inspections efforts go? It is not checking whether passengers are carrying explosives. If that were the case, it could be done mainly through machines, without so much manpower. Instead, it checks whether passengers have brought up petition leaflets. Now that it's an economic winter, can the spending structure be adjusted accordingly? Would you rather employ fewer security inspectors, pay a little more to maintenance technicians? Isn't that good? Economic winters happen in every era, so the key is how the government and society deal with the winter. From the Beijing subway rear-end incident, everyone should understand that in a society that requires complex technology to operate, it is very easy to experience fragility. In such a society, everyone's life can be earned by others every minute. Some people say, should we try not to take the subway in the future, choose the tail car, and avoid the front car to be safe? If you are traveling when the passenger flow is low, it is indeed safe to choose the less crowded carriages. However, during rush hours, if you can squeeze in, that's good enough. You have no choice. The key is whether you are willing to accept it in such an environment. Are you willing to accept it without questioning, without demanding the truth? If you are willing to accept it, the danger can come from any aspect, not just the subway, but also from other aspects.